You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Joe Frick, attorney at Joe Frick Law, LLC, in the Boise, Idaho metropolitan area. And I think you've expanded. You have like 5 offices now we're going to talk about. So welcome in. How you doing, Joe?
Doing good. It's nice and cold here in Idaho at the moment, so that's nice.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm in Massachusetts. And by the way, like I looked up Idaho on a map today. Like, I don't know why, like what possessed me to do that. You guys are like way more west than I thought. Like you're out by Oregon. Like, I don't know why I was thinking it was a little more center. Maybe I'm like showing my my naivety of like a map to everybody, but you guys are like way kind of west, huh? It's crazy.
Yeah, we're right in the Pacific Northwest. We're right up against Oregon and Washington, and the northernmost tip of Idaho hits Canada. So
okay, yeah, no, my sister was out in Oregon for a while, so I was surprised to see it all the way out there. So like what's happening in Boise these days?
it's growing extremely fast.
Really?
I think it's one of the fastest growing states in the country, and I think Boise, Meridian, Nampa, I think are probably some of the fastest growing cities in America right now. So it's getting big, it's getting fast, and the traffic is getting terrible. So
traffic's the worst. I know. All you want to do is get home at night, right? So we featured you today on the feed, on Lawyer Stories and on Instagram and Facebook, and we threw it up on our LinkedIn. And you really do have like an interesting story. Like the theme that I got a lot of is like a lot of self-motivation, man. Like you did a lot of this stuff for yourself, right? Like you grew up with like you have 5 siblings. Like in where you grew up in, was it Idaho you grew up in? Not Kansas. That was where your wife is, right?
No, I grew up in Southeast Kansas, so I ended up in Idaho because I joined the Air Force to get out of Kansas.
Right.
And then ended up getting stationed in Mountain Home, Idaho. And then while I was here, I met my wife, and we left back to Kansas for law school at Washburn. Practiced law for about 3 years in Montana. Then I opened my own practice here in 2016.
Okay, so going back to, I'm really curious about Air Force. I think that's super cool. Thanks for your service in the Air Force. So like, why did you decide to go into the Air Force? Like, did you have any family members in the service or anything?
Actually, pretty much everybody in the past was military. They were all Navy, though. It's kind of weird. I joined the Air Force because I didn't want to be on a boat. But yeah, my dad was in the Navy. My grandpa was in the Navy. My great-grandpa was in the Navy.
Wow.
So pretty much everybody. And now my brother's in the Army, so he kind of went way far field of what everybody else did.
Okay. Is there a lot of, are there like rivalries between all of you, like because of the different branches?
My brother talks a lot of, smack, but
all right.
But the funny thing is his daughter actually just enlisted into the Air Force, and he was like, yeah, that's the best idea, because there's always, those inter-branch rivalries and smack talking. So me and my brother kind of get after it, and one of the main jokes is, why'd you go to the Air Force? I'm like, well, because like my ASVAB score is high enough to get in. So
there you like, I think it's amazing. Like, I think like people in the service and like, well, it's just incredible. Like to be able to say you were in, the Air Force or the Navy, the Army. I think generally that's really cool. So, thanks for doing that. So like growing up with 5 kids, like you said, you didn't really think college was going to be in the picture. You stay-at-home mom. Your dad was like working on a farm. Like, tell us how that like unraveled for you and like becoming a lawyer.
Well, I was growing up. I didn't really think I was going to be going to college because not many people in my family did go to college.
Right.
My brothers and sisters didn't really go. My sister became a nurse, kind of at a younger age, and then my my older brother and my older sister, they didn't really go to college. My brother kind of dabbled in college, but didn't really kind of commit to it for quite a while. So it's kind of the first one out of the 6 siblings to kind of graduate with a bachelor's degree and then went on to a higher degree. But it was kind of one of those things where you grow up in a household that doesn't have a lot of income. You kind of don't think it's possible.
Right.
Got a scholarship for track at a community college. Went there. Made a lot of bad decisions. So the Air Force was kind of a way out, not just for the college, but just kind of get away from the bad decisions I was making.
Okay.
It kind of got me out of that funk and kind of helped me kind of grow up. So when I was in the Air Force, I got my bachelor's degree, and then I got deployed to South Korea. So I was in South Korea. I was about 6 months, and like when I was during that, I was working night shift, which allowed me to have some time to study for the LSAT. So as soon as I got back from South Korea, I took the LSAT, and then went to law school right after I got out. It was a pretty big toss up with business school or law school.
So that leads me to my next question. Like, what was the moment where you were like, law school's the thing? Like, that's what I'm doing.
It was kind of one of those toss-up things. It really was like I got to pick one or the other because I got to start studying for the GMAT or the LSAT.
Right.
And it was really those things. It was almost a flip of a coin, honestly. Okay. I probably would have enjoyed both, but now that I'm in my own business, I pretty much do everything that a person with an MBA does.
Yeah. Well, I guess the two of them actually ended up meshing, right? Because as a business owner, like you're using business skills all the time. So I would say it seems like as we proceed in this episode, it seems like it's worked out pretty well for you. So I think like one thing that's a lot of kids come out with, I shouldn't say kids, but like young adults and people who are in law school come out with like this crushing debt that takes them 20s, 30s, or 40s of years to pay off. Like you had the GI Bill. So I'm like curious about that. Like you mentioned in your story, got into Washburn using the GI Bill. So they covered that, right?
Well, so funny thing is I wanted to go to Alabama. I got into Alabama. I got out of the Air Force in April. It's going to start in August, and I was going to go to Alabama. And then my wife, and before we got out, and probably early in 2010, my wife was like, "Oh, I'm pregnant." So that was kind of one of those things where I had to make a decision on where do I want to go to Alabama or do I want to go somewhere else? Because Washburn gave me a full ride as well on top of the GI Bill. So I didn't have to work during that whole time because I got the GI Bill and then a full ride. So they had the full ride and then the GI Bill paid it on top of that. So I got a check for pretty much on top of the GI Bill monthly housing allowance. So I pretty much played those cards.
Yeah.
As best as you can.
Yeah, you did. I mean, I think that's really bright of you. I think a lot of kids just don't even think about it and they want to go, to wherever they want to go to. They don't really think of it in a practical, well, at least maybe I didn't, but like thinking about it in a practical way. So like, I think that that's really smart using like good business acumen. You're going to go to the school, or you got the free ride and you got the GI Bill. So did you used to hear kids at school complaining about like, the loan check would come in and everybody's going out to eat steak for dinner, like that sort of thing?
I haven't seen that. I've seen people in law school doing that, and then
that's what I mean in law school. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they would definitely not use that wisely. But I had a newborn, so my first daughter was actually born 2 months early, so I had to defer starting school until January because I had a 2-month-old. Well, she was in the NICU for 2 months, so essentially I was at the hospital every day and most of the time overnight for the first 2 months.
Right.
So I had to defer that, but having a kid during that whole process kind of made me grow up faster than that.
That's another thing that I think that goes to like your work ethic. I mean, to have a newborn and to be able to get through law school and study, and maybe some people say you could treat it as like an 8 to 5. Maybe that's something you did.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah.
Okay. So
Because
like,
I was right off of from the military. So I had a pretty
yeah,
strict,
right.
daily routine most of the time. So I was there from 8 to 5, and then I pretty much didn't do any studying outside of that. And yeah.
That's
So
amazing. So you really can say that um, being in the service, like it helped with law school. It helped become a lawyer. Is it helping today, would you say?
I think it does. I mean, other than I haven't had a different haircut since 2006, but but other than that, it's one of those things where it's kind of just instills in you kind of just a way of looking at things. And like even to this day, when I'm walking around, like people, like I talk to people over there, are you a cop? Or were you in the military? Like, what's going on? Like, you just have this weird look about you. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I was in the Air Force, but I don't know if that's the haircut or just the way I just handle myself. But people tell me that all the time. I don't know. But yeah, it's one of those things that, once you're in, because I was active duty for 4 years and then I was in the Guard for about 2.5. So it's kind of one of those things that just carries forward forever, I think.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. I think that's really important to say that being in like the service, the Air Force, like whatever branch, like carries forward with you forever, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about your first job at a law firm. You did some time at a big firm, is that right?
Well, big is a relative term. It was,
Yeah.
the largest law firm in Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming. I
Okay.
think I started there. There was about 150 lawyers
That's a lot.
spread
That's a
out.
big firm. Yeah.
Yeah, throughout those 3 states. So yeah, I practiced there. I did nothing but like oil and gas law and mining,
Okay.
which that's what I wanted to do. That's what I went to law school for. I did a ton of that stuff. So I did that for about 3 years. Did a lot of title opinions, a lot of like it's mostly kind of transactional work.
Yep.
Kind of hard if you don't know if you've ever done like title opinions, oil and gas law. It's kind of hard to explain
Okay.
what it's like. But I did
Is
that
that
for
what, did you want to do that? Is that something that you wanted to do?
that is something that I wanted to do right out of law school.
Okay.
Yeah, working in a big firm, and it just wasn't for me. It was kind of one of those things that I wanted to start a business at some point, and it wasn't going to happen there. I had
Right.
a family. I wanted more kids. I wanted more flexibility. I wanted, something else other than, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week
Sure.
forever.
Okay. So how did you know it was time to launch your own firm?
I just had a feeling it kind of everything kind of lined up really well for me. Well, sort of. Because I took the UBE in Montana the first year they had it in
Okay.
2013. And then in 2015, I believe, is when Idaho opened it up to scores. Like that was the last year I could transfer over to Idaho, and I transferred to Kansas too.
Okay.
But that happened, and I had another kid. My wife wanted to move, so it kind of just like, okay, well, if we're gonna do it, might as well just do it now.
Okay.
So I also didn't have any much cash at the time. So I had to
Yeah.
take out a $20,000 personal loan just to start the business. And that was kind of one of those nail biters first
Yeah.
year, which is kind of where I started
What do you
studying S.
spend that on? So in your story, you say you started with a 20,000. You might have cut out a little bit. You started with a $20,000 personal loan for your law
Mhm.
firm. What do you spend that on?
What did I actually spend it on, or what would I spend it on if I had to
A
start all
little.
over?
I guess a little about like. Well, what did you intend to spend it on? How about that?
I mean, essentially, what I spent it on was living expenses because
Okay. All right.
well, so I'm not from Idaho. I didn't have any personal connections in Idaho. I don't really even network at all, even to this day, because I do most of my stuff online digital marketing. So it was kind of one of those things where I'm coming to a brand new area. I don't know any of the attorneys. I don't know anybody. So it was kind of just living expenses till I get some
Yeah.
business through the door. So that was kind of living expenses for the first 6 to 12 months. And then, it's kind of getting scraping by to get clients and practicing door law, like kind of like most people do when they first open their practice.
So,
Uh,
so what advice would you give to somebody who wants to open their own law firm?
Start marketing way, way before
Okay.
you want to open, because, well, the way I market, I get 90% of my clients is all online through SEO on my websites. There's a million other ways to get clients, but all of it kind of starts at a 6 to 12 month lag time before you actually start getting a steady flow of clients, unless you're spending a ton of money on like pay-per-click, or you're buying leads from junk lead. Most lead generation companies they don't give you quality leads. So you're just spending a ton of money so your cost per acquisition on all those is pretty bad. So if you're starting out and you want to start out, even if you're in law school, you can start a website and just use it as a blog, and you can start gaining rankings in Google.
Right. So tell us about how important SEO was, like, for you when you first started. You said the first thing that you did was like literally study SEO.
Yeah. So obviously I didn't have very many clients for the six months to the year that I started. So pretty much all I did was tinker with my website, study SEO, watch a bunch of videos, implement things, see what worked, see what didn't work. But it's especially like in different areas are different. So some practice areas, attorneys don't market that way. Some practice areas you do. So if you have a community. So I started in Boise, but Nampa, I moved an office in Nampa after that. And that was one of the better decisions, especially starting out, because there wasn't a lot of attorneys there doing SEO, even for personal injury, which is typically very competitive.
Okay.
So, but that takes anywhere from 6 months to a year, unless you have a really low competitive area. Like I just started a site in Eugene, Oregon, and I got the first page in like a month and a half.
Wow.
But it's really depends on where you're at and
right.
how competitive it is and which practice area you're in. Because personal injury, no matter where you're at, it's going to be probably the more competitive area. But if you're looking at family law,
your camera just went out, Joe.
Yeah, I saw that. Let's see.
Then I'll pause it.
So like it kind of just all depends.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it all kind of depends on the practice area you're going through and kind of location, and those are the kind of things that you got to look at, because generally speaking, personal injury, no matter where you're at, it's going to be the more competitive keywords that they're going to be targeting. If you're looking at family law, where generally speaking, that's usually the lower keyword difficulty when you're talking about SEO. So it's easier to get to the top 3 in organic and the 3-pack and the maps. So, but if you look at that, you can see, how many people are actually searching for those kind of keywords in your area. And if it's over 100 and you get the top 3, you're going to make a decent amount of money.
Wow, that's amazing. We've actually had a few experts on SEO on our podcast. I don't know if there's anybody you ever want to connect with, but I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to connect with anybody you ever see on Lawyer Stories. That's sort of like the heart of what we do. So like, tell us the big factors in growing your law firm. Like, tell us like how you do it. 'Cause I know you went from like one firm to a few now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of went from, it's the same firm. So it's Joe Frick Law, but I've had different practice areas and different like brand names.
Okay.
So it's like Boise DUI guy. I grew that and then was making a ton of money doing that. Then I wanted to do personal injury. So I sold that for a decent chunk of change to another attorney here. I've done Boise bankruptcy relief. I've got Idaho bankruptcy firm right now. Idaho Divorce Law Firm is what we're branded as now, because that's kind of what we're doing.
Okay.
But I mean, marketing and sales kind of is the front runner of everything in the firm, because if you don't get any clients in the door, you're not going to be doing anything. But it's one of those things where they kind of all have to balance out. So, because if you can't have a ton of marketing coming in the door, then you don't have any systems and procedures on the back end, otherwise your whole factory is going to break, and you're going to have pissed off clients. You're going to leave bad reviews. They're going to do that. So you have to have marketing sales has to kind of match what your capacity is for the legal production portion of it. But building blocks from my point of view is marketing and sales. Until you get good at marketing, you can't get good at sales, because you're not going to get enough reps as far as talking to clients, kind of what you have to say. When I first started out, I didn't have any sales training. So it was kind of one of those things where they come in, they give you a story, and then you're like, okay, well, yeah, I can help you out with it. It's going to be this much money. there wasn't any persuasion there.
Right,
So
right.
faster you can get good at marketing, or hire somebody that's good at marketing and get good at sales, or hire somebody that's good at sales, the faster you're going to be able to grow and be able to take time off of your plate to build the back end as far as the systems and procedures, how you want your customers to be treated, how your workflows want to go, how your finances need to be set up, and your profit margins and all that stuff.
So Joe, when you talk, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Joe, when you talk about marketing and sales, is it all digital? What kind of marketing are you speaking of? And sales?
Yeah, like I said, marketing is a pretty broad term. I mean, so within marketing, there's so many different ways that you can get clients. One is just networking, talking to other attorneys in the area, which I don't do, because I have enough clients coming from other SEO, and I'm somewhat of an introvert.
Okay.
So there's those.
Well, you're doing great on the podcast, Joe. You're really doing a good job. Even though you just blacked out again. It's all good.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that dang camera. Let me try this again here.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's my cable or what? Okay.
All good. So yeah, we're talking about, like, what is the crux of marketing and sales, and you're saying like SEO, like you're getting people to come to your website. Right. I personally like to do my thing, lawyer stories, lawyer to lawyer, legal profession, networking, which leads to like a referral source, hopefully. But you're saying you don't really need to do that. I mean, you're sort of like an introvert, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways of marketing. There's, if you've ever heard of Alex Hormozy, he does a lot of business stuff, not law firm stuff, but just general business, information marketing stuff. Okay. But his kind of thing is, to get to $1 million, you got to get really good at one channel, one avatar. So, if you get really good at one type of marketing, that's kind of all you have to do. I mean, my stuff is SEO, digital, but you can get really good at referral networking, which is a guy named John Fisher, which you may be familiar with, but his thing is, he needs X amount of referral partners, and that's where he's going to meet his goal. And that's how he does his marketing.
Gotcha.
There's some people like, I can't remember the Legal Funnel guy. He does, Facebook ads.
Yeah. We had him on.
Yeah. So
Legal Funnel. I know you're talking Sam Malai, I think.
Malai. We've had I haven't done any of his trainings, but that's his thing, which is kind of more just Facebook ads and landing page. Right. But that's you get really good at one channel, one avatar, and you get your marketing message speaking to what that avatar actually is, because the sooner you can kind of niche down who you actually want to talk to instead of talking to everybody, the easier your marketing message is going to be. And if you know Dan Kennedy, his kind of thing is magnetic marketing. Right. What he says is, you're only magnetic to the degree that you're willing to repel others. So essentially, that means find out who you want to target and don't worry about pissing everybody else off.
There you go.
Because you're only looking for one type of person to sign up. And the more you talk to people, the more they're going to value your services, which means you can probably charge a higher price, but you're going to have to obviously provide the value for that price. But that's kind of the general marketing, kind of niche down, one avatar, one channel or type of marketing. Mine's SEO. You've got referral marketing, you've got Facebook ads, you've got organic Facebook postings, calling prior clients to just get referrals from prior clients, not just other.
That's the highest form of flattery, when a client refers you to somebody else, right? I think that's like the nicest thing that they could do, besides pay their bill. So,
and the closing rate on referrals from prior clients and other professionals is way higher than cold leads from SEO. Yeah, because SEO, you get a ton of leads in, but sometimes you got to filter those out unless you have strong marketing messages on your pages that say, speak to that person versus the other person.
Okay. Yeah, we recently had someone on our podcast, Chris Dreyer, who does SEO, and he has a book called Niching Up. So he actually just came on and we talked about that a little bit. So it's interesting that you're talking about niching because he talks about niching up. Really interesting concept. I think the book looks pretty good. So like, tell us about your firm. Like, what area you were doing personal injury, now your family. Tell us what it's all about, Joe.
So it's kind of been a constant niching down of practice areas from the very beginning. Because the first, was practicing door law. I was doing bankruptcies, DUIs, car crashes, divorce, child custody, and anything that came in the door. People always wanted to pay for it. So it went from that, and then I went to doing a ton of bankruptcies. I did nothing but bankruptcies for a while. Wow. Then I did nothing but DUIs for a while. Then I did. I don't have another camera, so I don't know how to.
No, it's all good. It's all good. How did you? I'm just curious. Like, how did you learn to do all of the different types of law? Did you just take a stab at it? Is that what happened, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's one of those things where you just practice. The battery's charged. Oh, what's. Yeah, the battery's charged. What's going on? I think it's this cable. All right, well, hopefully it doesn't go off again. But yeah, I mean, the different practice areas, I mean, you can go about it a few different ways. I kind of just started doing it and then just learned by doing it.
Okay.
You can get mentors that can help you kind of walk you through the process if they're willing to do it, which is kind of what I did with the personal injury side of it. I met a lot of mentors through the Idaho Trial Lawyers Association to kind of help me out. This is how you do this is how you do that. It's pretty cutthroat as far as getting the clients, but once you have the clients, then they're willing to help you kind of not mess the case up. With bankruptcies and DUI, kind of just did it, messed it up a little bit at first, and then
with what was that now?
Messed it up a little bit at first,
DUI?
and then kind of more of the bankruptcy because they're a lot more form driven.
Okay.
And if you don't check the right boxes, then you're going to get yelled at.
Okay.
So the trustee that I was doing the bankruptcies at the first was really nice because she was like, okay, well, here's your bankruptcy pleading. You can't do this and you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do this. So I'm not going to object this time, but next time, make sure you don't do that. I'm like, well, I've already filed 20 since then, and I did the same
thing. So what does your clients say? Like when that happens, they just don't know, they're not there, or you just sort of hope for the best?
Well, with the bankruptcies, they're sitting right next to you when they're talking to the trustee. So they didn't. I mean, I just explained to him afterwards, like it doesn't matter because it's getting pushed through. If she would have objected, I would have filed some more paperwork. But she didn't object, so this thing is getting pushed through. There's no issues, and we're good to go. But yeah, it's one of those things just learn by doing. You can't be if you're doing that. If you're opening up your own practice, you can't be really afraid to do these new things if you want to succeed anyway. Because if you're timid about just practicing law and getting in front of people, like I didn't go to court at all before I started my own practice. I was doing oil and gas work, right? So there was no court anything. And then as soon as I opened my practice, I started to go to court, started doing all that stuff, which was scary at the beginning, but you get used to it. And then after a couple of months of just learning by doing, showing up, not being afraid to make mistakes.
Right. That's good. That's great. And you obviously, like, you're a guy. I mean, look, going back to your beginnings, with Air Force and service, I mean, you have a lot of confidence, right? You have to have a lot of confidence to start your own business. And you're touching on all these areas of law. So, like, that you have faith in yourself that, like, you know how to do these things. Like, or even if you don't know how to do these things, you're going to, like, learn, right? So,
figure it out.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. I mean, I think that's what we do in law school, and that's what lawyers have to do. So we'll just keep going. Like niching down, like where are you now with your practice?
So right now, let's see if that'll work. So as far as niching down right now, we're just doing divorce and child custody cases, and that's it. So essentially, we have six case types. That's different types of contested divorces, and then child custody establishment and child custody modifications. That's pretty much all we do.
Really?
So essentially, once you start niching down like that, you can
Yeah.
get your work so tight that every case is essentially the same, and you can automate almost everything. So we have like 50 some forms in our Clio manage template. So what
Okay.
used to take 2.5, 3 hours to draft takes like 5 minutes now.
Okay.
So there's that. The more you do one specific thing, the more uniform it's going to be, the easier it's going to be to train people, the easier it is to push down the tasks to the people that can do them competently, instead of attorneys.
Okay. So like, what do you find most rewarding about the family law that you're doing?
I'm just seeing if it'll turn all the way off and then turn back on. If that'll help. So as far as what I find rewarding about the family law thing is, it's not an area that I really ever intended to practice. But the more that I think about it, the more I got into it, the more I do kind of value helping people out that actually want to see their kids. So when I say I had 3 brothers and 2 sisters growing up, one of the brothers and one of the sisters that's my step siblings, and then one of my younger brother is my half brother. So my mom and my biological dad, separated when I was 2. Then my stepdad kind of came in my life shortly after that, and he's been my dad ever since. So getting to help people actually get to stay in their kids' lives is pretty moving.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How are you helping other lawyers with their businesses these days?
Mostly just I'm not taking a ton of clients on, but I did start a kind of a marketing company. It's Lawyer Secrets Marketing.
Oh, cool.
It's lawyersecrets.com. But I'm helping a few of my friends throughout the country with their websites and their SEO and getting them ranked so they can get those, keywords that actually have a lot of search volume, and getting the top 3 so they can capture those leads and grow their business that way. And also helping with kind of some of their back end business stuff, like who they need to hire, when they need to hire them, how to train them and set that up so they only have to do it once. Stuff like that, kind of the back end of the business, kind of to, like I said, you have to match your marketing flow with your actual capacity to do the business in an efficient, profitable, productive way.
Lawyersecrets.com. I love that. That's super cool. Do you have like a logo or anything? Like we got to talk. That's a great, sounds really cool. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty neat website. I haven't done anything really with that site yet, because I don't, like I said, it's matching the marketing flow with the capacity. At this moment, I don't have capacity to maybe take 10 more clients on as far as helping with marketing and their websites and stuff like that. Until probably mid next year, then I can really open it up a little more. But it's one of those things where I kind of got to fully automate the law firm and make a few other key hires until I can get to that point. But like I said, about 10 more clients, then I'll probably be tapped out for the marketing end of it.
Wow. So I'm just curious, like, has social media helped you at all yet, or no?
We just started doing a lot of social media marketing. Okay. It's kind of like I was saying earlier, if you focus on one thing and get really good at it, if you get good at one thing, just dump more gas on the fire.
Right. So you said you have 5 law firms or 4? I mean, I know they're under your name, but
so I have, when you say different law firms, it's more of like different practice area websites.
Well, no, I thought you were in different locations, right? Is that right?
Oh, so different offices. So I've got my main office is in Meridian.
Sorry, I guess that was confusing the way I was asking it. Like your different locations.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why this is doing that.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I don't think it would be the lens. I just got into like amateur photography, so I got this camera. So I don't know if it's. I just got this new lens. I just got the new. It is fun. It's also very expensive.
I bet.
So, let's see. I don't think it would be the lens, but let's try that out. All right. Okay.
So I guess when I was referring to different I meant your like different locations. So you have how many different locations?
So right now we've got our main office is Meridian, where most of the people show up. I've got several overseas VAs that help out, so we don't have a big office because it's cuts down on it's more profitable, it's more efficient. So we've got our main office in Meridian. We've got a satellite office in Nampa and Boise. I may be opening an office in Montana sometime soon because because like I said, my hobby is kind of websites, and if I get bored on the weekend, I'll throw up a site, and then it gets ranked really high, and I get all these leads, and I can't do anything with them because I don't have any capacity, so I just refer everything out.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's gaining a lot of traction. So, and then within the next year, we'll probably have another office in either Twin Falls, Idaho, or Pocatello, somewhere in more eastern Idaho. And then if we do open an office in Montana, it'll be in Billings.
Okay, gotcha. Wow. So if we go to all your offices, what are they generally practicing? Is it all family still, or is it some personal injury?
Right. Yeah, right now it's just all family law.
All family, okay.
I'll take some personal injury cases, but it's got to be pretty big to take because I just don't have a lot of the back end infrastructure to handle that kind of case type right now. Because you've got to have the back end working, and then all my back end is geared towards family law. But right now it's all family law, and it will be pretty much for the foreseeable future.
Wow.
So,
Joe, give us some advice for like a lawyer who needs to start marketing their firm more.
Well, the advice is going to kind of be geared towards one of two different types of people. I guess really one is, if they have a lot of time to study that, and then one if they have a lot of money to dump money into. I mean, so if you have time, you can study SEO and kind of get your site ranked. But if you have more money, you can hire kind of an outside vendor. As far as vendors go, you're gonna have to really, really pick at them to see, what their results are, what they can actually get you. And then after you hire them, you actually have to track what they're getting you.
Right.
Because I mean, a lot of people with these SEO companies, they get them and then they just dump a bunch of money into it, and they don't know how to measure the results. They don't know if they're actually getting them actually any clients or not. So if you are spending money, make sure you're tracking what you're spending your money on, and if it's coming back towards you. I mentioned Dan Kennedy earlier. He's got a really good book, No BS Direct Marketing for non-direct marketing businesses. I think if you just Google like No BS Marketing by Dan Kennedy, that should be the first one that comes up. But that kind of has a lot of really good rules as far as how to spend your money, how to track it, and kind of the rules that you should follow. Just starting out marketing. If I would have done direct marketing right off the bat, I would have saved a ton of money, would have saved a ton of time, would have sped up my process. But yeah, so if you got a lot of time, you can study all you want. If you got a little bit more money that you can spend on some vendors, so you can build more time on some of the other stuff. If you have time to do the network marketing or just building your back end of the office.
Wow. Okay. It's too bad I didn't know you were like a veteran like a week ago, because I would have had to do like a veteran post like for us, like, doing like a video and like saying that, like everything. I was just thinking about that too. But that's good marketing advice. Like SEO is huge. We know a few of the biggest in the lawyer business. Happy to make the connection or with anybody that you see on Lawyer Stories. Like I like to, that's our sweet spot, like I say. But like, what are your future plans?
So right now, what the kind of the 5-year plan is kind of to grow Idaho Divorce Law Firm into kind of a statewide practice. So like I said, the next year I want to open at least one office in Eastern Idaho.
Okay.
If I do it, and then the next one would be kind of just probably in Northern Idaho and probably Coeur d'Alene. So kind of just taking over Idaho as far as the divorce and child
I was
care.
gonna say, like, you're taking over Idaho. Are you just like dominating Idaho right now? Like, how's that?
As far as family law goes, yeah, we're pretty high up there as far as
That's awesome.
the majority of the market share and just growing most every day. I mean, because I think this year compared to 2021, we're going to grow 100% from 2019 to 2020. I think
100% growth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're probably going to do at least 65 to 70% next year. But yeah, essentially for the past 3 or 4 years, we've been growing at least 50% a year. So just trying to keep on that trajectory and opening more offices and hiring more attorneys and staff.
How many staff do you have now? Like in-person staff? Do you have like a lot of
in-person?
What's that?
In person?
No, so all right. Well, you don't have to answer that. So it's mostly virtual, like assistants and all that. Like,
yeah, no, we only have, let's see, I just hired an operations manager. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 in-house, and I'm looking for at least one more attorney, so it would be 5.
wow.
And then I've got 6 VAs.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to talk to you about VAs when we go off recording, but Joe, what's the best thing about having your own law firm?
Well, where I'm at now, it's, kind of getting to do what I want to do as far as being essentially kind of the chief marketing officer and kind of go towards what I want on that end. But, when you're first starting out, it's exciting. So you're starting a business, you're learning all these new things, but it's also super stressful.
Yeah.
But right now I have the capacity and the clients and the resources to kind of delegate a lot of those things down.
Right.
So one, it's, getting to delegate those things down and spending more time with my family. Like, even though I'm planning on taking over Idaho, like I said, I'm getting those key hires in so I can still only spend like 15 to 30 hours a week at the firm, depending on the week. So, yeah, that's kind of the best part about it. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. That's awesome. So, like, did we leave anything out? Like, is there any advice or anything you want to tell us, the lawyer service community? I don't want to, like, not touch upon anything that you wanted to touch upon.
I don't think so. I mean, essentially, generally speaking, attorneys are just bad at marketing, which I think is why there's so many vulture marketing companies out there that just kind of prey on these attorneys that don't know anything about marketing, and they just kind of keep that recurring revenue from them, and the attorneys don't even know how to track their progress or get any results from those people. Yeah, it's one of those things where you got to keep track of what your marketing vendors are doing. You don't have to know what, in detail what they're doing, but you kind of have to have a broad overview of what they're doing and how they're actually getting you clients. Because I know I wasted a ton of money on several different vendors and lead gen companies. And after you actually learn how to track all that stuff, you really understand what your cost per lead is, what your cost per acquisition actually is. And if you're got a high cost per acquisition, you might be getting a ton of clients in, but the profitability is way down. So it's hard to do those two things.
I think that's great advice, actually. I think that's really candid, great advice for lawyers looking to market. So I thank you for that. Is there anything else? I definitely don't want to sign off without not getting anything out, everything that you want out.
Let's see. Let me think. I don't think so. I mean, we talked about, the marketing, the SEO, different types of marketing. I think the one channel, one avatar, if you really nail that down, especially right when you begin, because a lot of lawyers, I know I did too, when you start out, you get pulled in so many different directions because you got, I can go do Facebook ads and ClickFunnels and Legal Funnel, and I can do SEO, and I can do marketing, referral marketing, and I can do this and that and the other. But really, like, to get to a pretty good income, like on a consistent basis, you just need to get good at one type of marketing,
right?
And then talk to one type of people. If I would have practiced that at the very beginning, it would have sped up the growth curve quite a bit.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Joe, that's great advice. You're doing great things out there in Idaho.
Right. We're trying.
Super cool. Maybe I'll make it out there one day. Have you ever been out east?
Not much. No, like I said, it's I'm trying to think, like, well, I stopped in Bangor, Maine on the way back.
Oh, dude, I'm from Portland, man. I've been like Bangor's like 2 hours north of where I'm from. I'm from Portland.
Yeah, I was there for like a night on the back from trip back from Afghanistan. I went to got stuck in Kyrgyzstan for 2 weeks, and then we're in Bangor, Maine for about a day and a half, and then we flew back to Idaho. But I've been to DC a couple times, but I haven't spent any actual like more than a couple days.
Get out to Boston or Manhattan, man. You got to do it.
I do own BostonDUIGuy.com.
What is it? BostonDUIGuy.com?
Yeah, so that's a whole other story. But
I think all of these websites are like another story. I think like we might need to talk about this another time. Like I think what you're doing with the website is super interesting. Like you're getting these sites. Is that like off GoDaddy or something? Like how do you get all these things?
I wouldn't recommend GoDaddy because they're just a train wreck. But
nice.
There's other sites to buy those out, like Namecheap and just a ton of different ones. I mean, GoDaddy's not bad, but they've just got a lot of bugs in the back end that drive me.
So you could go to any of those places and get the actual like domain name. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, I have like 180 domain names, but I think I only have like 15 to 20 active sites.
Wow. Hey man, if you see somebody on Lawyer Stories who might be interested, let me know. That'd be sweet. Yeah. But Joe Frick, everyone, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Yep, thanks.
Good to finally connect. Stay there. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Lawyer Stories community, check us out. It's been fun as always. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.